Hey, I'm Cyclon, and today I want to talk about beast farming, a strategy I have recently at least once a league went for, and it has always been profitable for me. However, those profitability is under some conditions. Beast farming has its downsides, and I want to cover those in this video a bit more in detail. However, first of all, beast farming did got buffed, and I want to talk about that first. So beast farming previously was the following. You had beasts, you had essences, you run them in white map, because white maps meant that you were only getting Craicic Chimerals or Plague Arachnids, or you run them in T5 to T6, meaning you had Plague Arachnids, Craicic Chimerals, and Saccharine Rex as the uncommon beasts. And then you added it with essences, essence on the map device, one sextant, one scarab, and that was it. With the changes to the scarabs, however, we don't necessarily need to do it on T5 to T6 anymore, which means we don't need to put in the sextant every time, we instead just put in scarabs, but this also means that if we want to run it in T1 to T4, which is optimal for beast farming, we no longer have any sextants, so we don't need to put any void stones in, meaning we don't need to put the map in, open the map, take the void slot so we can get all map drops, or buy all the maps. We can now self-sustain our maps, just put scarabs in, it's way easier to run. So this is the first big change. Now this change incorporates sub-changes. For example, the Gilded Scarab that we used to use is now the Bestiary Scarab of the Herd, just better. Gilded Bestiary Scarab offered us 3 additional red beasts. One Bestiary Scarab of the Herd offers us 5 additional beasts, meaning we can use 2 Herd Scarabs, meaning 10 additional red beasts, basically doubling the amount of red beasts we see per map. At least that's how it feels. Then the Sextant is now also a Scarab, which is the Bestiary Scarab of duplicating, and it is incredibly common, so it makes a Scarab, which the Sextant used to be expensive, about 20 to 40 chaos, meaning that was a condition to be profitable, had to cover the cost for the Sextant, with the Scarab being worth almost nothing. Now we have a way easier time to get our supplies in bulk just over the trade website and instantly can start running. It's a whole big upside. And then there's a third big upside. There's a new Scarab, which is a bit more rare, it's a bit more expensive than the other Scarabs, and that is a Bestiary Scarab of the Shadowed Crow. We can utilize this Scarab to have a beast guaranteed every map that will sell for more than the Scarab is. So the Bestiary of the Shadowed Crow is at the moment at 10 chaos. I bought it in bulk for like 15 chaos. And that one will give you a beast that sells in 15 chaos, but we are using the duplicating scarab, meaning we get 2 each time. So this is double the currency every time we sell, and they can sell for a bit more. I sold them for 15 to get definitely all my sells in a decent time frame, but when you run this, you don't need to force to first run it, then stash everything, then price everything, then sell everything. You can every 10-20 maps, you can take your Shadowed Crows out, your Black Morrigans out, you can put them on trade, and then you can list them, and when somebody messages you for a bigger amount, you stop your map, you pause, you go out, you sell, or you can take some breaks in between and then do tiny sell breaks. Option is yours. So the Black Morrigan has its upsides of adding a stable profitability per map on top of getting the lucky Craicic Chimerals. So big upsides with the buffs and scarabs, but of course there are some downsides, and I wanted to cover those as well. The first big downside, or well, this is the questionable downside. This farming strategy has its big profit in Craicic Chimerals. This is considerable a lucky occurrence. It happens between 1 in 10 to 1 in 20 maps, at least in my experience. The biggest dry streak I had was 20, and the shortest dry streak I had was 3. So sometimes you get a bit more lucky, but oftentimes we assume about 10 to 15 maps until you get another Craicic Chimeral, at least according to my data. So the Craicic Chimeral is the big drop that we want, the big drop that we need, because that sells for 1.5 divines at the moment. And with it being duped, that is whenever we find that's 3 divines gain, immediately covering most of our cost for most of our scarabs, and the Shadowed Crow is covering itself, So basically, one Craicic Chimeral fine will already cover our cost, and everything else afterwards is profit, assuming we have a sample size of 100 runs, or we buying scalps for 100 runs. Now, this also means though that if you get unlucky and you get a bigger dry streak, that's gonna feel a bit awful. If you don't find a Craicic Chimeral in quite a while, or you buy a smaller starting batch and you get unlucky, that's gonna feel as good. So that's why I put it as a kind of downside. But then there are actual downsides. One of it being that the Black Morrigan can take some time to sell. And also, being a lot of supply will crash because the demand isn't as high as the supply can be. So let's say now, right now, there were a few sellers with 100 or more Black Morrigans. The more sellers there are, the more we need to underprice each other to get our single one sold, or our own one sold. I had my first listings for 25 chaos, and at the moment my listings are at 15 chaos, just to show that it actually did drop. So keep this in mind when utilizing the Black Morrigan, when utilizing the Shadowed Crow, that you add stable profit, but it takes time to sell. There isn't that much bulk demand. Most of them buy like 2 to 4 to 6 link, 6 socket and 6 link their items, and then there are maybe a few that sometimes buy them in bulk to utilize for likely the Hinokoros lock crafting with a Craicic Chimeral new craft. But that's an assumption. Most of them will sell in 2 or 4, so it takes some time to sell, and they can lower in price quickly the more supply there is for that. So Black Morrigan is optional, is not required, and has its own downsides, so feel free to evaluate on your own if you want to run Morrigans or not. Now there's 2 more downsides. Well, one kind more downside, kind of upside. We are running T1 to T4 maps, which for bestiary is an upside, but the downside is that we are locked in what to run. This means that we can't use altars, we can't use influences, we can get boss drops. Essences want you to use Scarabs and T6 plus maps, which we aren't running. We can't really utilize Chimeral, we can't really utilize Alva, we can't really utilize Nico for getting Azerites in our maps with the mining byproduct nodes. There's not really much that synergizes with this, so we are a bit limited in what we can put in our map that adds enough on our map while also considering time investment. It is very important to run as many maps as possible. We see a lot of beasts in the map, but even with that many beasts we see, we are still looking at a 1 in 10 to 1 in 15 to get a Craicic Chimeral. So that being considered, we need to run a lot of maps in an hour to get a lot of Craicics in an hour, because that is our main income. Or well, the main profit gain, or main gain, or however you want to phrase it. So we need to look to run approximately 1 minute maps, which is a bit hard if we add John on the map, essences on the map, and then maybe more beasts on the map, and we clear every beast. So it's becoming a strat where we can't really put much on our map because it needs to be time sensitive, it needs to be efficient, and then we need to consider that we want, even with what we are doing, we want to be efficient at it. So for the beasts, we want to identify the beast and only intentionally kill the good beast. Sometimes we need to kill some other beasts, sometimes we randomly kill some other beasts. We need to self-sustain our map, so we don't need to buy maps as it's low tier maps, and most people are farming T16s. Getting those maps is a bit harder, meaning that we want to have our own map supply, or self-supplying our map, so we don't need to buy, so we need to spend less currency on this farming strategy. So we need to show maps, which is important. Some endgame filters aren't showing maps. Check if your filter does. We don't want to overloot, we don't want to overkill beasts, and we need enough content in our map to get our map supplies, and content that maybe speeds us up a bit, like Packed with Energy from Nico, from Delving, or from the Sulfite nodes, and maybe some speed shrines. So this is basically our strategy. Shrines, Einhar, and then Nico to get some additional speed. The maps we want to run are gonna be Field and Strand for the exact same reason. Strand and Field are the quickest maps we can do. On any other maps that I tested, even on Dunes, my best stable time was about a minute. maybe a minute 15 on some maps, maybe a minute on some other maps. But Strand and Field, I got consistently sub 1 minute maps, and if I was going really hard focused and really quick, I even got 45-second maps. So those are the maps I will be recommending, and when you favor them, you should do a half-half split. Now, with that said, we need to know what beasts to clear, how to identify those beasts. And right now, at least, it's Craicic Chimeral, Venomous Black Arachnid, and the Black Morrigan if you opt in the Shadowed Crow Scarabs. The Black Morrigan, is very easy to identify. It has a unique name, so if you hover it and the name is orange and it says Black Morrigan, you got your beast. It is a big crow or crow-like creature. It has feathers, it has a beak, it has wings, it's jumping. It is very easy to identify. The Venomous Black Arachnid is equally easy. It's the only big spider and it has a big abdomen with like dots on it. It's very easy to identify, but the Craicic Chimeral can cause some issues. Now the general rule of thumb for the Craicic Chimeral is as following. If it's jumping, if it's blue, and if it's a frog-like creature, it's a Craicic Chimeral. But of course, there are some other jumping things. There could be an apparition that's jumping. If it's an apparition that's jumping, there's usually another Craicic creature like a squid, or like the Twizzlers, or how they're called, or like a crab. Or if it's not jumping, if it's jumping, it can also be a goat, which is in brown and followed by some other beasts. Or it is a Black Morrigan, which then you will know that it's not a frog. So usually when you find a frog, and you will see it's a frog, you will realize, hey, that's a Craicic, perfect. It usually also accompanied by other Craicics. Like usually the frog is accompanied by frog minions. And you will be pretty sure it's a frog. If you're unsure if it was a Craicic Chimeral or not, very likely it wasn't one. At least as far as I've played, whenever I said, hey, that's a Craicic, awesome. When I think, was it a Craicic? It usually wasn't a Craicic, but you can always just check after your map, kill for safety, check after the map, was it a Craicic? No, and you will learn after running like 300, 400 maps, you will definitely start to know what beasts are what beasts. Right, so finally, let's take a look at the Atlas tree. The Atlas tree is fairly simple. We can make a base structure of 86 passive points. The tree incorporates the adjacent map drop nodes, helping us to try to at least get a safe, it's not guaranteed, but it helps with the sustaining of our maps. We then combine it with one shaping of the mountains and one shaping of the world. We don't pick up other shaping nodes on the higher map tier chance node, because too much of that will result in us getting more T4s than T3s, and Strand is the better map over Fields, but Fields is the second best map and it's adjacent, so we can utilize singular focus to ping pong between these two maps and maybe get a few chaos orbs here or there in between. We then pick up almost all Einha nodes. We need to take the Einha chance nodes so that we have a guaranteed Einha every map. We then pick up Big Game to have a chance for even more red beasts. We pick up the guaranteed yellow beast before it. We pick up natural selection to get more uncommon beasts more likely. We pick up only the hunt for Craician. The reason is, as far as I know, the way it's considered what beast is placed, it's considered, am I going to be a common beast or am I going to be an uncommon beast? And if it's an uncommon beast, then it's going to look what uncommon beast can spawn, what's going to place in there. So if we have Hunt for Craician and Hunt for the Venomous on a T1 to T4 map, it then is going to have an increased chance for the Spider. But if we only have the Hunt for the Craician, it has an increased chance for the Craicic Chimeral, and that means we overall going to find more Craicic Chimerals. We then pick up Two-Headed Hunt, of course, because this one gives us a chance to have like a 10 to 40% chance from what I've seen to not be consumed. It's a nice addition. It can help selling in bulk, but honestly it's not that important, but it is just adding on top. And if you want to self-use, that's also nice. As far as I've seen, this one cannot apply to the Black Morrigan. I've not seen any Black Morrigans with an enchantment. I've cleared 200 Morrigans, so I think it's not applying to unique ones, just to the rare ones. And then we pick up amplified artifacts. Because we're clearing a lot of rares, we sometimes gonna get some scarabs, which is a nice addition. It's not any significant amount, but it would be the first optional I would be taking. Now the tree on the spreadsheet, and the one I'm gonna be linking in the description, has a few additional nodes. I've added the one I've been using, and what I've been using is, on top of the nodes just explained, I'm also be using Packed with Energy and 100% chance to spawn Nico, so that I have more, I have my 3 sulfite nodes, I have some enemies around them that can drop a map maybe, and I get up to 45% movement speed. Now in Strand and Fields you usually get the maximum movement speed towards the end, but still it's free movement speed, we're guaranteeing it. It doesn't take additional time, we just click on it and move on. So it's just nice to have. And then I pick up shrines. The shrines help us with 2 things. First of all, it spawns enemies. The enemies can drop maps, and then second, it can give us an echo shrine, a movement speed shrine, or it can give us an covetous shrine. Covetous shrine means potentially more maps, and the movement speed and echo shrine mean faster clear, faster mapping time. So overall, shrines help us the most out of all the league mechanics without taking additional time. And that's really all there is to the strategy. Once we understood that we need to run it fast and efficient, once we understood how the tree works, how to identify the beast, nothing really stopping us from running it fast. Now I did run it with an optimized build. I need to be mentioning that, and I will be looking at the times and the profit with an optimized build and with a slightly less optimized build. In previous leagues I have used a less optimized build, and I got safely my 1 minute 30-second maps, or less. Most of the time was less, but that was what I calculated with, and this time I got my 1 minute maps fairly stable. So it doesn't take much to optimize the time in your maps to improve it and get faster. Now I have on my spreadsheet 2 calculations, one with a Shattered Crow, one without a Shattered Crow. The one without the Shattered Crow has a better ROI, is cheaper, doesn't require the 4th spot. The one with Shattered Crow has a slightly higher profit per hour, but that is only considering theoretical profit from the running. It is ignoring the time that it needs to sell the crows. So overall, both have their up and downsides. I heavily recommend making your own choice towards the Shattered Crow. It takes additional time to sell. It takes more chaos technically that you need to put into the farming, because you need to buy the more expensive scarab. It's the only scarab that is worth more than, I think, 2 chaos in bulk, and it has its downsides, but of course it is stable profit. So if you feel unlucky with Craicic Chimerals, it helps with covering your base cost until you get lucky and get some Craicic Chimerals. So we assume with the Black Morrigan, we assume that we get about 10 divines an hour stably and 21 divines an hour if we assume 1 minute maps and if we add the Craicic and the Flammable Plague Arachnid. However, there is a caveat to this. Again, of course, this is assuming 1 minute map. We're going to take a look at 1.5 minutes in a moment, but the other caveat is that I got a heavily different amount of Craicic Chimerals comparing Black Morrigan maps to non-Black Morrigan maps. I run 100 maps without Black Morrigan and 100 maps with him. The maps I run with him, I've gotten 26 Craicic, the maps I run without him, I got 26 Craicic Chimerals, and the maps I run with him, I only got 14 Craicic Chimerals. Now, we need to halve those because we are duplicating, so that is a 1 in 14 maps Craicic Chimeral with him, and it's a 13, so that is, I think it's a 1 in 8 or 1 in 9 without him. So just to give that information, it is a difference how many maps it averagely took me to get a Craicic Chimeral with and without him, but it could be that I've gotten very lucky when I wasn't using him, and I got unlucky when I was using him. So if anybody wants to give me additional data and wants to share their results with me by utilizing the same scarabs and the same at least Einer nodes, feel free to DM them to me and I can add them to the spreadsheet, and we can then take a look if my case was an unlucky versus unlucky case, or if that was is actually that the Black Mulligan somehow affects the amount of T0s you find in your maps. So we assume now our 21 divines an hour if we have inconsistent and consistent combined, but if we add it to 1.5, our profit drops to 14. Now that is a big drop in profit, which means that it's again very important to run quickly. You can easily achieve quick speed by utilizing a build that can use sheer charge and have some side clear, by using a bow build, utilizing the Queen of the Forest, and maybe even a Mage Blood. Now Mage Blood is a bit more expensive. This is something I usually do to get towards a Mage Blood, but of course, if you already have a Mage Blood and you're farming up to something else, there you can utilize a Mage Blood very well to save some time in your maps. So it drops by 1/3 if we add a third, or well, half of the time. It drops our profit by quite a bit, but of course you can just adjust your build to aim for a better time. Now if we are looking at our time or at our profit without the Black Mulligan, we are losing as a baseline. However, consider that our maps are free and we spend 3 cares per map. That is a 1.5 divines loss, assuming 1 minute maps. So this is barely any investment we put in our maps, right? This is close to nothing for 100 maps to be run in investment. But if we then have our Craicics, which at least to me it felt like we got quite a lot of Craicics, now we suddenly look off an ROI of over 1000% because of how many Craicics we're gonna be getting in the span of an hour. And then suddenly our profit that is negative jumps up all the way to 18.6 divines. Now of course, if we assume instead of 1 minute maps, again we will have 1.5 minute maps, so 90-second maps, we are looking at 12.4 divines an hour. Like I said, the profits, while having more Craicics, adding the Black Mulligan as a stable profit on top of beast farming will add up to a lot more early. It looks like later on it will drop, it looks like more theoretical profit, but it looks like more time needed to sell, more time needed to liquefy, which evens out again in the end. Sorry for the bad phrasing there. So yeah, strategy is not that complicated, nothing really big. I think beast farming is really great if you need to make a currency push for something specific. Let's say you want to get to your headhunter, or to a Mage Blood. Headhunter is a better example this league. You want to get to your Mage Blood, you need to get to a specific currency point to buy an upgrade, or you just want a few more divines so you can maybe buy your mirror or whatnot. I think for that beast farming is great, but because of the requirement to identify the beast, be quick, be efficient, and it's just a very draining and intensive farming for what it gives. It gives a good amount of profit, but it is quite intensive. It is quite tiring to do this over a long duration, so I rather do this in like 100, 200, 300 maps, a big push, get my currency and get out. Talking about taking my currency and get out, let's finally take a look at my actual profit before we end the video. So the profit that I've made, or the gain that I've made, is a little bit more than 2k chaos and 70 divines. Now, assuming I spent 200 maps, I had a split between Mulligan and non-Mulligan, the profit is all together in one bulk. I have not sold any of the Phenomenal Plague Arachnids. I've only sold the Mulligans, and even there I haven't even sold all Mulligans, but only tiny sample size left, not sample size, a tiny amount left. And I've sold all the Craicic Chimerals. So here we have our, let's say, 14 divines that I spent on the Black Mulligan Scarabs, and then like 700 chaos that I spent on the other Scarabs, which I even have some leftovers. So we have our 2093 chaos divided by the current rate of divines. We have 17 divines, which more than easily covers the cost of our maps, maybe even a bit over, but just to have an easy amount, this can we assume that I've made 70 divines profit for 200 maps, which took me 200 minutes with selling and everything. Let's say 300 minutes, so it's a bit over, what is it? 160, 120, 180, 240, basically 5 hours to get 70 divines. if we divide 70 by 5, and this is including selling time, including setup time and everything, 70 divided by 5, that's still 14 divines hour in profit that I've actually here in my currency stash, including selling, including everything, just for the sake of being realistic. Now, I would still say that is a pretty decent amount, and all that being said, have a wonderful day, have fun with the strategy. If there's anything unsure, any questions, feel free to ask me. I will answer any comment that needs answering. I will answer on DMs on Discord or on the designated channel in my Discord as well. Have a wonderful day. Goodbye.